I thought Celia needed moral support. By dessert, her family was planning her future with another woman, and I was the only guest who hadn't been warned. The Ward family vineyard looked like the kind of place where ordinary people were expected to lower their voices. Rows of grapevines stretched across the hills beneath the fading California sun, each one perfectly aligned, as though even the plants understood that disorder was not tolerated here. The main house stood at the center of the estate, all pale stone, arched windows, and climbing ivy. Valets moved silently across the circular driveway. Women stepped out of black cars wearing silk dresses that probably cost more than everything in my rented apartment. Men in tailored suits greeted one another with the careful warmth of people who had known each other for generations and trusted none of them. I stayed in my car for an extra 30 seconds. Then my phone lit up. "Celia, where are you?" A second message appeared before I could answer. "Celia, please tell me you didn't change your mind." I looked down at the dark green dress hanging awkwardly around my knees. It was the nicest thing I owned, purchased 3 years earlier for a former girlfriend's gallery opening. I had spent 40 minutes deciding whether it made me look elegant or like a waitress at an expensive restaurant. Me, in the driveway, trying to remember how forks work. Her reply came immediately. "Celia, I'm coming outside, don't move." I smiled despite myself. That was Celia. She could make a command sound like a rescue. A moment later, the front doors opened, and she hurried down the steps. For several seconds, I forgot how to breathe. I had seen Celia in business suits, old university sweatshirts, muddy vineyard boots, and one truly criminal pair of pink pajama pants she had worn during a 3-day flu. But I had never seen her like this. Her midnight blue gown fit closely at the waist, before falling in a smooth line to the ground. Her dark hair was pinned back, exposing the graceful angle of her neck. Diamonds flashed at her ears. She looked like she belonged to the house behind her. She also looked terrified. "You came," she said when I stepped out. "You asked. That has never stopped you from being difficult before. I'm flexible on special occasions." Her smile appeared, quick and relieved. Then she looked me over. Not casually, her eyes moved from my shoes to my dress, lingered for one dangerous second at my waist, and finally returned to my face. "You look beautiful," she said. The words landed somewhere too deep. I covered it with humor. "You sound surprised." "I'm not surprised." "You looked surprised." I was appreciating. That sounds legally distinct from staring. "Nora, Celia." For a moment, neither of us looked away. That happened sometimes, small pauses in which the air changed and our friendship seemed to lean toward something neither of us had the courage to name. Then Celia cleared her throat and held out her hand. "Come inside before I lose the ability to pretend I'm happy to be here." I took her hand because I always did. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Inside, the house glowed with golden light. A string quartet played near a staircase lined with family portraits. Servers moved through the crowd carrying champagne and tiny pastries arranged with architectural precision. My professional instincts took over. I examined one of the pastries as a server passed. "Don't," Celia whispered. "The lamination is uneven. You have been here 12 seconds. And already I've identified a crisis. You promised to behave. I promised not to insult your mother. That is not the same thing." It was the maximum commitment I could offer. Celia squeezed my fingers before releasing my hand. The loss of contact felt strangely immediate. Before I could think about it, a silver-haired woman in an ivory gown approached us. Evelyn Ward never hurried. The world had apparently been trained to wait for her. She was beautiful in the polished, intimidating way Celia would probably be in 30 years. Her expression softened when she saw her daughter, though not enough to qualify as warmth. "Celia," she said, "you're late. I've been here for an hour. You were hiding in the library." I was answering emails. "You were hiding with a laptop." Evelyn's gaze shifted to me. "And this must be Nora." I smiled and extended my hand. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Ward." She accepted my hand as if I had passed her something slightly damp. "Celia has mentioned you." "Hopefully only under oath." Celia coughed to hide a laugh. Evelyn did not. "You own a bakery, I believe." "I'm an independent pastry chef. I run a small custom business in the city. How charming. There were two ways wealthy people said charming. One meant delightful, the other meant insignificant. Evelyn had mastered the second. She's being modest, Celia said. Nora supplies desserts for 3 hotels, 2 restaurants, and half the corporate events in the financial district. When she remembers to send invoices, I added. Evelyn gave Celia a pointed look. I'm glad you brought a friend. These evenings can be tiring. The word friend should not have hurt. It had described us accurately for 9 years. Still, something in the way Evelyn said it made me feel like a temporary accessory Celia had brought to make the evening more tolerable. A glass of champagne, a comfortable pair of shoes. Nora. I'll leave you to circulate, Evelyn said. Celia, your father wants a word before dinner. Her eyes returned to me. I'm sure someone can show you where the staff entrance is if you need to check on the dessert service. Celia's expression hardened. Nora is a guest. Of course she is. Evelyn smiled. Then she moved away. I took a slow drink of champagne. You promised not to insult her, Celia murmured. I didn't. You're composing something. It includes the phrase emotionally refrigerated. Nora. I'm keeping it internal. Celia turned toward me fully. I'm sorry. You didn't say it. I brought you here knowing how she can be. You also warned me. Not enough. I studied her face. The tension around her eyes had deepened. This isn't just a gala, is it? Her gaze flickered toward the room. My family turns everything into a strategy meeting. That wasn't my question. Before she could answer, an older man called her name from across the room. Celia's father stood beside a group of investors, gesturing for her to join them. She looked at me reluctantly. I'll be 5 minutes. I can survive 5 minutes among the aristocracy. Stay near the bar. Why? You're less likely to start a class war if your hands are occupied. She walked away before I could defend myself. I stayed near the bar for almost 4 minutes. Then a woman in a red dress introduced herself as Celia's aunt and asked whether my bakery was one of those little Instagram businesses. A cousin wanted to know whether Celia had met me through a charity program. Another guest asked whether I was catering the evening. By the time dinner was announced, I had smiled so much that my face hurt. Celia found me beside the dining room doors. Are you all right? Your cousin thinks I'm your community outreach project. Which cousin? The one who looks like he was assembled in a yacht club. That does not narrow it down. She glanced toward her family. Sit beside me. The dining room table could have seated a small government. Name cards marked each place. Crystal glasses reflected the candlelight. The family portraits continued here, generations of wards watching from gilded frames. My place card was beside Celia's. On her other side was an empty chair. I noticed Celia looking at it. Who are we missing? I asked. No one important. Her answer came too quickly. Before I could question it, conversation shifted as Evelyn entered the room. Everyone took their seats. The first course arrived. For the next 20 minutes, I tried to follow discussions about distribution contracts, land acquisitions, and a possible expansion into Napa. Celia answered questions with polished confidence, but I could feel tension radiating from her beside me. Her knee touched mine under the table. Neither of us moved away. Then the dining room doors opened. The woman who entered was elegant enough to make the entire room seem underdressed. She wore a cream-colored suit with a silk blouse and understated gold jewelry. Her dark blonde hair fell perfectly over one shoulder. She carried herself with the calm assurance of someone who had never once wondered whether she belonged. Celia went still. The woman smiled at her. Hello, Celia. Every conversation stopped. Evelyn rose from her chair. Sabrina. We were beginning to worry. I'm sorry. My flight was delayed. Sabrina moved around the table, greeting members of the family with kisses and familiar laughter. Then she reached us. Her eyes settled on Celia first. There was history in the silence between them. Not old affection exactly. Something more complicated. Something unfinished. Then Sabrina looked at me. You must be Nora. I set down my glass. And you must be Sabrina. Celia turned sharply toward me. I raised an eyebrow. She had never shown me photographs of Sabrina, but I knew the name. Everyone knew the name. Sabrina Vale. Celia's former fiancé. The woman Celia had almost married 4 years ago. The woman she rarely discussed. Sabrina took the empty chair beside Celia. "I've heard a great deal about you," she said to me. "I've heard almost nothing about you." "Nora," Celia warned quietly. Sabrina's smile widened. "It's all right. I respect honesty." "That makes one of us at this table," I said. Celia closed her eyes for 1 second. The next course arrived. Conversation resumed, but the energy had changed. Sabrina spoke easily with Celia's parents, asking about the latest vintage and complimenting the new event space. Evelyn's face had softened in a way it never had with me. They loved her. More than that, they had expected her. I looked at Celia. "What is happening?" I whispered. "I didn't know she was coming." "Do you want me to believe that?" "Yes. Because it's true." "Why is your ex-fiancé sitting beside you at a family dinner?" "I don't know." Sabrina leaned closer to Celia. "Your mother said you were considering Napa." Celia's jaw tightened. "My mother says many things. I think it would suit you." "I'm not discussing business tonight." A lie. Business was the only thing anyone had discussed all evening. Dessert was served just before the toast. It was a chocolate torte with a blackberry reduction. The sponge was dry. Normally, that would have been my greatest concern. Then Evelyn stood. A server filled every glass. Celia's hand closed around the stem of hers so tightly that her knuckles whitened. "Tonight," Evelyn began, "is about continuity." My stomach dropped. She spoke about the vineyard, the family legacy, and the responsibility of preparing the next generation to lead. Her words were elegant, but I barely heard them. Because Sabrina was smiling, Celia was not, Evelyn continued. "Some partnerships are too valuable to be abandoned because of temporary misunderstandings. With maturity comes the wisdom to revisit what pride once disrupted." Celia pushed her chair back slightly. "Mother," Evelyn ignored her, "we are delighted to welcome Sabrina back to the estate. And we hope tonight marks the beginning of a renewed relationship, both personally and professionally." Applause began. Not from everyone, but from enough people. I stared at Celia. Her family had invited me to sit beside her while they publicly arranged her reconciliation with the woman she had planned to marry. I had never felt so foolish. Maybe I was only moral support. Maybe that was all I had ever been. The dependable friend who answered late-night calls, delivered emergency croissants, and stood beside Celia while she prepared to choose someone who fit more naturally into her world. I reached for my napkin, then Celia reached beneath the table and took my hand. Her fingers locked around mine. The applause faded. Celia stood, bringing me with her. "Mother," she said, her voice calm enough to cut through the room, "you do not get to announce my future." Evelyn's expression hardened. "This is not the time." "No, it is exactly the time because you created it." Celia looked at Sabrina. "I'm sorry you were brought here under false expectations." Sabrina's smile disappeared, but she nodded once. Then Celia turned toward me. Her thumb brushed across my knuckles. The room seemed to narrow until there was nothing left except her face. "Nora isn't my guest," she said. My heart stopped. "She isn't temporary." Her voice softened. "She's my future." No one moved, no one breathed, and for one impossible second, every secret hope I had buried over 9 years rose inside me at once. Celia loved me, or wanted me, or saw me. I should have been happy. Instead, I felt exposed. The most private, fragile part of me had been dragged into the center of a room full of strangers, and I did not know whether Celia had just confessed her love or used me as a weapon against her mother. I pulled my hand from hers. The hurt on her face almost broke me. "I need air," I said. Then I walked out. Celia followed me onto the terrace. The night air was cold against my skin. Music drifted faintly from the ballroom below. Beyond the stone railing, the vineyard disappeared into darkness. "Nora, wait." I kept walking. She caught up near the end of the terrace. "Please." I turned. "Did you mean it?" "Yes." Her answer was immediate. I wanted to believe her so badly that it made me angry. "Then why did everyone else hear it before I did?" Celia's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You've had 9 years," I continued. 9 years of late-night calls, shared holidays, hospital waiting rooms, terrible dates, and Sunday mornings in my bakery. You never once told me you wanted more. I was afraid. So you chose a ballroom full of your relatives. I wasn't planning to say it tonight. That makes it worse. How? Because you didn't confess to me. You reacted to your mother. That doesn't mean it wasn't true. No, but it means I have no idea what part was true. Her eyes flashed. All of it. Am I your future, Celia? Or am I your rebellion? She flinched. I hated myself for causing that pain, but I could not stop. Your mother wanted Sabrina, so you chose the person she would hate most. I did not choose you because my mother disapproves. Did you choose me at all? Yes. When? Her silence answered before she did. I don't know, she whispered. I laughed once, bitterly. That is not an answer. It happened slowly. Then you had time to tell me slowly. I thought you didn't feel the same way. You never asked. You dated other people. So did you. Not seriously. You were engaged. That was before. Before what? Before me? Before she understood? Before she decided that her independent pastry chef friend was more useful than the polished woman her family preferred? Celia took a step closer. I am trying to tell you that I love you. No, you're trying to make the declaration you already gave an audience sound private. That is not fair. You made me part of a family battle without my consent. I was protecting you. From what? The way they were treating you. You could have defended me without claiming my entire future. She looked away. That was when I understood. Celia had always protected people through action. She solved problems, paid bills before anyone could ask, made calls, opened doors, destroyed obstacles, but she rarely explained herself. She decided what people needed, and gave it to them, even if they had not asked, even if the gift felt like a cage. I need to go, I said. I'll take you home. Nora, I came here for you, Celia. I need to leave for me. I walked past her. She did not follow. For 6 days, we did not speak. That was the longest silence between us in 9 years. During those 6 days, I discovered how completely Celia had woven herself into my life. I reached for my phone whenever something ridiculous happened in the bakery. I made too much coffee because I was used to her arriving unannounced. On Wednesday, I found one of her scarves in my office and had to lock the door until I could breathe normally again. Memory became cruel. I remembered the night my commercial mixer broke, 2 hours before the largest order of my career. Celia had arrived in an evening gown, kicked off her shoes, and stayed until dawn boxing pastries. I remembered finding her asleep in my office chair, with flour in her hair. I remembered a delivery trip 3 summers ago, when the van overheated near the coast. We had sat in the back with the doors open, sharing a melted lemon tart with plastic forks. At sunset, she had looked at my mouth. I had looked at hers. A truck horn sounded in the distance, and the moment vanished. I remembered my first handwritten menu, stained with butter and coffee. I thought I had lost it. Years later, I found it framed in Celia's apartment. When I asked why she had kept it, she said, "Because it was the first time you wrote down the life you wanted." I remembered introducing her to my former girlfriend, Elise. Celia had been perfectly polite. Afterward, she spent an hour explaining why Elise's opinions about dessert were evidence of a serious character flaw. At the time, I had laughed. Now I wondered how many signs I had ignored, because friendship felt safer. But one question would not leave me alone. Did Celia want a relationship? Or did she only want the comfort I had always provided? On the 7th night, she came to the bakery. I had just locked the front door when someone knocked. Celia stood outside wearing jeans, a gray sweater, and no makeup. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. She looked nothing like the woman who had claimed me before a ballroom. She looked tired. Human. I opened the door but did not step aside. "What are you doing here?" Trying to say this correctly. "Did you practice?" "For 3 hours. That sounds dangerous." I also wrote notes. She held up several folded pages. Despite everything, I nearly smiled. "May I come in?" I let her inside. We sat at the stainless steel work table in the darkened kitchen. The only light came from the display cases and the lamp in my office. Celia placed her notes on the table. Then she pushed them away. I did not fall in love with you at the gala, she said. And I did not fall in love with you at the gala, she said. I waited. I think it started the night you made me a birthday cake after Sabrina and I ended our engagement. I remembered that night. Celia had arrived at my apartment, saying she did not want to talk. I had made a small chocolate cake because it was her birthday and because feeding people was the only way I knew to hold grief. You wrote congratulations on avoiding a terrible decision in icing, she said. It was accurate. You didn't ask me to explain. You didn't tell me I would feel better. You sat on the floor and ate cake with me. Her eyes lowered to her hands. Then there was the morning your oven caught fire. That was not my finest hour. You were covered in soot, standing outside the bakery, and you kept apologizing to your customers. I remember thinking I would buy you 10 ovens if it meant you would stop looking like your life was over. You did offer to buy me an oven. You threatened to stab me with a thermometer. You were being controlling. I know. The admission was quiet. I loved you when you refused my money, she continued. I loved you when you worked 3 jobs to reopen. I loved you when you hired Matteo because he needed a second chance, even though you could barely afford help. I loved you when you drove 2 hours to bring my father the almond biscuits he liked after his surgery. My throat tightened. I loved you in pieces, she said. So many small pieces that I didn't understand what they were until they had become my entire life. I looked away. You should have told me. Yes, you should have asked what I wanted before announcing what I was. Yes, you embarrassed me. I know. You made me feel like a symbol. Her eyes filled. I know. There was no defense, no clever argument, just acknowledgement. It made staying angry much harder. What do you want now? I asked. You. That is too simple. Then I want the opportunity to deserve you. That sounds rehearsed. It was on page 2. I laughed before I could stop myself. Celia smiled, but only briefly. I'm serious, Nora. So am I. I took a breath. If we do this, we do not jump from friendship to forever, because you said something dramatic in a ballroom. All right. We date. Her eyebrows lifted. Date? Like normal people. I'm not sure either of us qualifies. No assumptions, no secret plans, no making decisions for me. All right. No expensive gestures. She hesitated. Define expensive. Celia. All right. And if this feels wrong, we say it. She reached across the table, but stopped before touching my hand. May I? That question mattered more than she probably understood. I turned my palm upward. She placed her hand in mine. Warm, familiar, entirely new. Our first date was a disaster. Celia reserved a private table at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. I stared at the crystal chandelier. You promised no expensive gestures. This is dinner. There is a pianist. Restaurants are allowed to have music. He is playing your favorite song. That could be a coincidence. The pianist looked directly at Celia and nodded. I folded my arms. She sighed. I panicked. Clearly. I wanted it to feel special. It feels like we're negotiating a merger. The waiter arrived carrying a bottle of wine. Compliments of the chef, Miss Ward. I looked at Celia. She looked at the table. 20 minutes later, we left. Still dressed for fine dining, we drove to a roadside dessert cafe near the highway. We sat in a cracked vinyl booth and shared a slice of coconut pie under fluorescent lights. This is better, I said. The coffee tastes like punishment. It builds character. You already have too much character. Our knees touched beneath the table. Celia smiled at me. Not the careful smile she used with her family, not the polished one she wore in business meetings, the private one. The smile that belonged to sleepy mornings, ruined recipes, and jokes no one else understood. My heart began beating too quickly. Outside, the parking lot was empty. Celia walked me to my van. For a moment, we stood beneath a flickering streetlight. I had a good time, she said. You spent most of dinner being publicly disciplined. I enjoy learning. No, you enjoy winning. I enjoyed being with you. The teasing faded. She stepped closer. Then stopped. May I kiss you? I had imagined Celia kissing me so many times that the real question felt impossible. Yes. She touched my cheek first. The kiss was soft, almost cautious. Then I gripped the front of her jacket, and caution disappeared. 9 years of restraint broke open between us. She kissed me like she had been waiting. I kissed her like I was angry that we had waited at all. When we finally pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. "That was not very slow," she whispered. "We can walk slowly between kisses." That seems reasonable. Dating my best friend was both easier and more frightening than I expected. Nothing changed. Everything changed. Celia still stole the corner pieces of my brownies. I still corrected her when she mispronounced French pastry names. But now she kissed my temple when she passed behind me in the bakery. Now her hand rested at the small of my back when we crossed busy streets. Now an ordinary Sunday morning could become dangerous simply because she looked at me too long. She attended my spring tasting event and spent 4 hours carrying trays when one of my servers called in sick. I attended a vineyard planning meeting and saw another version of her. Celia at work was precise, demanding, and impossible to ignore. She challenged projections, remembered every employee's name, and refused to let her uncle cut seasonal workers' hours to protect executive bonuses. Watching her lead made me understand why the family wanted her in Napa. It also made me proud enough to frighten myself. One evening, she came to my apartment while I was testing a pear tart recipe. She removed her coat, rolled up her sleeves, and began washing dishes without being asked. "You know," I said, "most wealthy heiresses do not scrub baking trays. Most wealthy heiresses have better taste in women." I threw a towel at her. She caught it. Later, we ate pasta on the floor because my small kitchen table had become a cooling station for tart shells. Celia rested her head on my shoulder. "This is my favorite place," she said. "My floor? Wherever you are when you stop worrying." I never stop worrying. "You do when you cook. That's because food is logical. Food burns. Only when you distract me." She lifted her head. "Am I distracting you?" "Yes." "Should I leave?" "No." That night she stayed. We did not rush. There were kisses, whispered questions, nervous laughter, and pauses whenever either of us needed one. But what I remembered most was afterward. Celia lying beside me in the dark, tracing circles against my wrist. "I'm afraid I'm going to ruin this," she admitted. "You might." "Thank you." "I might ruin it too." She turned toward me. "That is strangely comforting. We can be disasters together." "No grand declarations?" "Not without written approval." She kissed my shoulder. For several weeks, I believed we were learning. Then Evelyn Ward invited me to lunch. Alone. I almost declined. Curiosity won. We met at a private dining club where the staff knew her name and no prices appeared on the menu. Evelyn did not waste time. "I want to understand your intentions toward my daughter." I thought that line belonged to fathers with shotguns. "I am serious." "So am I." She folded her hands. Celia has always been impulsive when she feels cornered. Our relationship is not an impulse. You believe that. I know that. She proposed to Sabrina after 8 months. I kept my expression neutral. Celia and I are not engaged. Not yet. There was a warning in the words. Evelyn studied me. Celia is being considered to lead our Napa expansion. It is the most significant opportunity of her career. That sounds like something she should decide. It is. Then why are you telling me? Because attachment often disguises itself as principle. I would hate to see her reject the future she has earned, because she feels responsible for someone who cannot follow. The insult was elegant. That made it worse. "My business is here," I said. "Exactly." I stood. Evelyn remained seated. "Nora, my daughter has always been drawn to people she can rescue." I looked at her. "She is not rescuing me." "I hope you are right." Outside the club, Sabrina waited near the entrance. For a moment, I wondered whether the entire meeting had been staged. "Did Evelyn send you?" I asked. "No, but she told me you were coming." "Of course she did." Sabrina walked beside me toward the street. "I owe you an apology. For attending your own surprise reconciliation? For not leaving immediately. That was hardly your fault. It became my fault when I stayed at the table." I looked at her. She seemed different away from the Ward family. Less perfect, more tired. "Why did your engagement end?" I asked. Sabrina considered the question. Celia loved me, she said. But she loved solving problems more. That sounds dramatic. It was exhausting. I stopped walking. Sabrina faced me. When my firm offered me a position in London, Celia created an entire plan. Apartments, flights, tax arrangements, schedules. She built our future in a spreadsheet. That sounds like Celia. She never asked whether I wanted that future. My stomach tightened. She was trying to help. Yes, Celia is always trying to help. Sabrina's expression softened. She will protect you dramatically. She will stand between you and a room full of enemies. She will offer everything she owns. That does not sound like a warning. It is when the difficult choice arrives. She stepped closer. Celia makes hard decisions alone. Then she presents them as gifts. I thought of the gala. She's working on that, I said. I hope so. So do I. For a while, it seemed that hope was enough. Then we attended a Ward family lunch. Celia had warned me that her family wanted to discuss the summer harvest. I expected criticism, passive aggression, and at least one comment about my shoes. I did not expect Napa. The conversation began casually. Her father asked whether Celia had reviewed the expansion budget. Her uncle mentioned temporary housing. Then her younger sister, Lauren, smiled and said, I still can't believe you might be gone by September. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Celia went pale. Lauren looked between us. Oh. The entire table fell silent. I set down my fork carefully. Gone where? Nora, Celia said. Gone where? Her father frowned. You haven't discussed the Napa appointment? The room tilted. Evelyn watched us from the opposite end of the table. Celia reached for my hand. I moved mine away. Not here, she whispered. The irony nearly made me laugh. I stood. Excuse me. Celia followed me into the corridor. Nora, please let me explain. How long have you known? It isn't final. How long? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleeping beside me. 3 weeks of cooking together. 3 weeks of conversations about our schedules, our families, and whether she should keep a toothbrush at my apartment, all while she secretly considered moving hundreds of miles away. You said no secret plans. I didn't have a plan. You had an offer. I was waiting until I knew what I wanted. And everyone at that table knew. My family is involved in the project. I am involved in your life. I know. Do you? She looked stricken. I didn't want to worry you before there was something definite. You decided what information I could handle. That is not what happened. It is exactly what happened. I was trying to understand the options. Alone. I needed time. You had time. You took mine too. Her voice sharpened. What was I supposed to do? Walk into your bakery the day I received the proposal and ask whether you would abandon your business for me? No. Then what? Tell me the truth. I didn't want you to think I was asking you to sacrifice everything. You weren't asking me anything. That is the problem. People were listening from the dining room. I no longer cared. Celia lowered her voice. I was going to tell you. When? After you made the decision? No. After you built the schedule? Chose the apartment? Calculated how often you could visit? She looked away. That told me enough. You already made a plan. A preliminary plan. Without me, I was trying to protect what you built. The words hit the same wound. Protect. Rescue. Decide. You know how to claim me in public, I said. You still don't know how to include me in private. Her eyes filled with tears. That is not fair. It is true. I love you. Love is not the same as partnership. I am trying. So am I. Then don't leave. Her plea stopped me. For 1 second, I almost stayed. But fear had already taken control. If you wanted me to stay, you should have made room for me before the decision. I walked away. This time, Celia did not chase me. For the next 2 weeks, I buried myself in work. I accepted every order. I slept in the bakery office twice. I told myself I was protecting my heart. Matteo, my assistant pastry chef, was less convinced. You know, he said, while glazing apricot cakes, most people who are handling a breakup well do not make 600 macarons on a Tuesday. It's a large order. It's for Thursday. I believe in preparation. You believe in exhaustion. I glared at him. He continued glazing. Are you going to talk to her? She made her choice. Did she? She kept the offer from me. That was wrong. Thank you. You left before she made the choice. I put down my piping bag. Whose side are you on? Yours. Unfortunately, you are being annoying. I pay you. Not enough to lie. That evening, Celia's sister visited the bakery. Lauren ordered one eclair and did not eat it. She isn't going to Napa, she said. I continued wiping the counter. That is her decision. She hasn't made one. Also her decision. Lauren sighed. You're both exhausting. Apparently that is the family opinion. She was wrong not to tell you. I looked at her. But she isn't the only one repeating a pattern. I don't have a pattern. Lauren raised an eyebrow. It was a very Ward expression. When you feel rejected, you leave before anyone can reject you completely. That is not true. You walked out of the gala. I needed space. You walked out of lunch. She lied to me. She withheld something. That was wrong. But instead of asking what she wanted, you decided what the secret meant and disappeared. I folded the towel in my hands. Lauren's voice softened. Celia controls uncertainty by making plans. You control it by finding the nearest exit. I hated how accurately the sentence landed. She needs to learn that loving someone does not mean managing them, Lauren continued. And maybe you need to learn that staying for a difficult conversation does not make you weak. What does she want? Lauren stood. You should ask her. The Harvest Gala arrived 1 month after our argument. I had no intention of attending. Then a courier delivered an envelope to the bakery. Inside was my original invitation, the one Celia had sent months earlier. Beneath it was a handwritten note. I will not make another announcement about our future, but I am going to tell the truth about mine. You deserve to hear it directly, whether or not you choose to stay. I read the note 6 times. Then I took the green dress out of my closet. The vineyard looked different in autumn. The hills were darker. The air smelled of soil, oak, and crushed grapes. Lanterns hung above the terrace, where Celia and I had argued during the first gala. Inside, the same family portraits watched over another elegant crowd. But this time, no one mistook me for the staff. Sabrina saw me near the ballroom entrance. She smiled. You came. I haven't decided whether that was wise. Wisdom is overrated at Ward events. Are you here for the wine? I'm consulting on international distribution. So the family finally accepted that your relationship with Celia can be professional. They prefer any relationship they can put in a contract. I laughed. Then I saw Celia. She stood near the stage, wearing a black suit. Her hair was tied back. She held a folder against her side. Even from across the room, I could see how nervous she was. Our eyes met. She did not approach. She did not assume. She simply waited. I walked toward her. Hello, she said. Hello. You look beautiful. You've used that line before. I meant it before. I know. The words carried more than one meaning. An event coordinator called Celia toward the stage. She looked at me. I have to speak. I know. I'm glad you're here. Then she walked away. Evelyn introduced her as the future leader of Ward Vineyards. Applause filled the room. Celia stepped behind the microphone. For several seconds, she looked down at the prepared speech. Then she closed the folder. My family expected me to announce a decision tonight, she began. Evelyn's smile tightened. The Napa expansion is important. It could transform this company, and leading it would be an extraordinary opportunity. My chest ached. Celia looked directly at me. But I have spent much of my life confusing leadership with certainty. I believed that being responsible meant having every answer before anyone else had the chance to ask a question. The room became still. I made plans for people I loved. I called it protection. Sometimes it was control. Evelyn shifted in her seat. Celia continued. So I am not announcing my relocation tonight. Whispers moved through the ballroom. The expansion plan is unfinished. My decision is unfinished. And for once, I am not ashamed of that. She stepped away from the microphone. No grand declaration, no public claim, no use of my name. She had kept her promise. Several minutes later, I found her on the terrace. She stood beside a table covered with folders, maps, and financial documents. "You brought paperwork to a gala," I said. She turned. "I was told not to bring a pianist." I came closer. "What is all this?" "The actual proposal." She opened the first folder. Timelines, responsibilities, travel expectations, housing options, and the parts I disagree with. "You want me to read it?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because my decision affects you." I crossed my arms. "Are you asking me to move?" "No." "To give up the bakery?" "No." "To tell you not to go?" "No." "Then what are you asking?" Celia took a breath. "I am asking you to help me understand what a shared future could look like." I said nothing. She continued carefully. "I could lead the expansion while keeping my primary residence here. It would mean traveling 3 days a week for the first 6 months." She showed me a calendar. "I could also negotiate a rotating leadership structure, or delay the permanent appointment until the first phase is complete." "You already thought through these options?" "Yes." My expression must have changed, because she quickly added, "But I did not choose one." "Why not?" "Because this is where I used to stop seeing the difference between preparation and decision." Her voice shook. "I am allowed to gather information. I am not allowed to design your life around it without you." Something inside me softened. Not completely, but enough. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want the job." The honesty hurt, but it also relieved me. "I want to prove I can build something that is not simply an extension of my mother's plans. I want to change how this company treats its workers. I want to lead." She stepped closer. "And I want you." My throat tightened. "I do not know exactly how to have both," she said. "I am asking whether we can figure it out together." "Celia, I am not asking permission. I am not asking for sacrifice. I am asking for partnership." I looked at the schedules, the maps, the notes written in the margins. For once, the plan was not a finished structure I was expected to enter. It was an open door. "I was wrong too," I said. Celia blinked. "I should not have kept the offer from you." "No, you shouldn't have." "I accept that. But when I found out, I left." "You were hurt." "I was terrified." I looked toward the dark vineyard. Every time something feels uncertain, I leave before the other person gets the chance to decide I'm not worth staying for. Celia reached toward me, then stopped. I placed my hand in hers. "I told myself I was protecting my independence," I continued. "Sometimes I was just protecting my fear." Her fingers closed around mine. "I don't want you to abandon the bakery." "I won't. I don't want you to follow me because you think love requires it." "I won't do that either. I may need to travel." "I know. And I might make mistakes." "You definitely will." She laughed through her tears. "So will you," she said. "I make charming mistakes. You make loud mistakes." We stood together beneath the terrace lights. For the first time, our future did not feel like a promise one of us had made for the other. It felt like a question we were both allowed to answer. We agreed to test the travel arrangement for 6 months. Celia would spend part of each week in Napa and return to the city before my busiest bakery days. I would not pretend the distance was easy. She would not pretend every problem could be solved with a calendar. At the end of 6 months, we would review the decision together. Not because either of us needed permission, because partnership meant allowing love into the room before the choice was complete. 4 months later, we returned to the vineyard for a family dinner. Not a gala, no string quartet, no speeches. Just a long table on the terrace, too much food, and several bottles of wine. Evelyn remained polite rather than warm, but she no longer referred to my business as charming. That counted as growth. Sabrina attended with her new girlfriend, an architect who spent most of dinner arguing with Celia's uncle about sustainable construction. Matteo supplied dessert and charged the Ward family full price. I had never been prouder. Near the end of the evening, one of Celia's cousins asked how we had finally gotten together after being friends for so long. Every face turned toward us. Months earlier, Celia would have answered immediately. She would have told the funniest version, controlled the story, and turned our private history into a polished public moment. Instead, she looked at me. A quiet question. "Permission." I smiled. "You can tell them," I said. Celia leaned back in her chair. "I made a terrible speech." It was not terrible, Evelyn said reluctantly. It was emotionally reckless, I corrected. She left me on a terrace. She deserved it, Sabrina added. Celia pointed at her. You are not part of this version. Everyone laughed. Later after dinner, Celia and I returned to the quiet end of the terrace. The vineyard stretched below us beneath a clear sky. No family audience followed. No ex-fiancé waited inside. No argument hung between us. Celia slipped her hand into mine. I received the revised Napa agreement today, she said. My body tensed automatically. She noticed. Then she handed me a folded document. I haven't signed it. I read the first page. The travel requirement had been reduced. The rotating leadership structure was included. Seasonal worker protections had been added to the expansion budget. You got everything you asked for, I said. Almost. What is missing? Your opinion. I looked at her. You want the truth? Always. The travel schedule will still be difficult. I know. I will hate some weeks. I know. I don't want us to become two people who only exchange calendars. Neither do I. But I think you should take it. Hope moved across her face. You do? I think we should take it. Her eyes filled. I touched her cheek. You did the work, Celia, but we built the decision. She leaned into my hand. For a moment, we simply stood there, listening to the faint sound of laughter from the house. Then she said, I love you. No performance, no rebellion, no grand speech, just the truth, spoken softly enough that it belonged only to us. I smiled. I know. Her eyebrows rose. That is all? I kissed her once, then I rested my forehead against hers. I love you too, I whispered. Now you let me love you inside the decision. Her arms came around me. This time, when she held me, I did not feel claimed. I felt chosen. And because she had finally learned to make space for my voice, I could choose her too. Not as an escape, not as a rescue, not as a future announced beneath chandeliers, but as a woman standing beside me in the dark, offering an unfinished life and asking me to help her build it. Together,